And this is the, as I said, the second of these daily shows, when we'll be full of really great guests and some slightly strange sections. And also, if Chris keeps coming every day, some beautiful shirts. Everyone stare at Chris's beautiful shirt. I think the first thing to do, though, is hand over to you, Adam, if you're going to talk to Dan, aren't you?
Yeah, good morning, Dan. How are you?
Good morning, sir. I'm okay, thank you very much.
Good. And Dan is our resident scourer of the internet and all things social media. And Dan's job is really to have a look at what's been going on over the last few days and in the coming weeks on social. And on Friday, we always like to pick up on some of the gentler social media things that have been happening. So Dan, what have you got for us today? I think I need to share my screen for this, don't I?
You do, yeah. So Adam Carolan, who I don't know if he's on the call actually. I can't see if he's on here. I don't think he is. He started a thread on Twitter, which a lot of you might have seen earlier in the week. It's called Self-Isolation Hair. So the idea is what you're going to look like after you have been through 12 weeks of not being able to get a haircut. Now, for women, this isn't, well, I don't think it's as bad for women, but for men, as you can probably see, mine's already getting quite long. Adam Carolan is here, apparently. That's good. So, yeah, after this, if you could all send, I mean, if you might have already done so, but if you could all send your before and after pics to that thread on Twitter. I'll put Adam's Twitter in the chat box there. And we'll pick up on some more next week as well. So I thought I'd just go through some of the favourites. We've got Adam Owen here looking very dashing beforehand. And see Dan Martin there's put his... I think he knows what's going. Yeah, so obviously Adam Owen not growing anything on the top there, just growing something on the bottom. If you click next, Ad. Elliot Guthrie there looking very handsome in his suit. And he thought afterwards he would look like that. Obviously very topical at the moment as well. Next, please, Ad. And probably my favourite one of them all, this strapping young fellow here, Dan Martin, he sent a really unusual one from way before. I don't know how old he was on this, but let's just hope he doesn't go back to that. And he's also changed hair colour as well, which is a bit weird. Next, please, Ad. And then Rich Ellis, of course. I think he put a tweet out last night saying he's actually cut his own hair, or his wife's cut his hair, something like that. So obviously, I don't think he'll look like this afterwards. Next, please, Ad. And then we've got Rebecca Tuck there. She thought she would look like Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. I think a lot of us will be looking like this after this week. And then we've got Gretchen after that. And she assumed, I don't know how long she intends to be in isolation for, but that's how she intends to look like afterwards. And then I thought I'd do one for me because I didn't actually send one to Adam, but I get this all the time and saying that I look like either Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones, or this one I get even more often is that I think people think I look like Claire Balding now, which is a bit offensive actually. When I think about it, but the more I think about it, I actually can see the resemblance. So yeah, if you could send your ones in to Adam on that thread, and then we'll post some more up next week as well.
Thank you, Dan. And we're going to be moving on in a while to our special guest, Chris Budd, who will also be doing our thought for the day. And our fitness focus will be from Steve, who's on his bike already, I think. Steve, you on your bike? Yeah, Steve's on his bike. But before we all get to that, we're going to hand over to Will for today's news from New Model Advisor.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, and I'm sure there are no clients on this, so we can talk about the markets safely. So every day it changes. FTSE's fallen again today after a rally for the last few days, mainly because the coronavirus is getting its teeth into the US. So that story, that sort of human story, is obviously going to start taking its toll on markets, I'm afraid. Over the course of the next few days. The other sort of big story, obviously, is actually sort of last night, so yesterday's evening story, is about the measures for the self-employed, as I sort of trailed yesterday. I'm just going to sort of read a few headlines from that because it gets a little bit complicated, and we've already seen a lot of activity on Twitter. People sort of find that they're going to fall off one of the various cliff edges. But it's as I predicted, it seeks to emulate what was given to employees. So for some people, they'll be given a taxable grant equal to 80% of the average profits they reported across 3 years, from April 2016 to April 2019, up to a cap of £2,500 per month. This is a grant, I believe, that's just calculated by HMRC. I don't know, based on tax returns that have already been given. So let's hope your tax returns were accurate. It only applies to people whose average profits were no more than 50,000. So average profits of no more than 50,000, which does create a cliff edge. That is absolutely a cliff edge. And if your profits are above that, you don't get it. If you're still working, you can still claim this, which is different to the what happened to the scheme for the employed people. So if you're furloughed employee, you can only furloughed employees or furloughed employees can apply. Self-employed, you can keep working. The other big thing to sort of point out, I mean, obviously, if you set up a business in the last year, you won't get any help. Actually, I happen to know some journalists who have become freelance within the last year, and they're actually experiencing a double hit, because not only can they not, work has dried up, they can't claim on this scheme, and some other journalists who are out of work or not working as mopping up around the edges, I'm afraid. But anyway, back to advisors. The one thing that's really important for you guys will be potentially dividends. What's happening with dividends? So dividends don't count. So if you take a lot of your income as dividends, then you won't get paid, and that's not going to be the basis for your up to £2,500. So if you've taken a lot in dividends and paid yourself a notional small income, that's what they're going to use to calculate the money you'll get. Now, I understand that a lot of advisors, or many advisors, the directors, obviously, perhaps not the sort of rank and file, so to speak, do pay themselves in dividends. We did a site poll a few weeks ago when we thought something might come up in the budget. It's very, very much a straw poll, but we asked if you are a director or the business owner or director, does some of your annual income come from dividends? And 79% said yes. So assuming, and there was about 80, 100 people who answered, it wasn't a huge poll, but it was just giving you an idea that dividends are quite widely used. And maybe that's something you can sort of confirm or deny to me later. But I think this is potentially going to be a big story. We're also seeing power planning firms have already been particularly badly hit by what's going on with coronavirus. And I think some of the structures they've set up for especially freelance power planning firms are not best pleased with that. Especially since there was a suggestion by the Chancellor at the end of during his announcement yesterday, that they'll seek to bring self-employed sort of taxes in line with employed, and national insurance and things like that. And again, I think some self-employed business owners, potentially some of those with the freelance power planning structures, may end up sort of falling between two chairs with what's going on. But again, I'm very much sort of learning as I'm going along here. Just something else I thought I'd point out, aside from the self-employed thing, but to do with salaries, Ian Mattioli, who's the chief executive of Mattioli Woods, it's probably a familiar firm to you all, has decided to reduce his basic salary to zero. So he's not going to pay himself a salary this year because he's basically saying he's got enough money. And the board directors have all agreed to reduce their basic salary or fees by 50% until 30th June this year. I thought it was a really interesting move. Hopefully, I don't know whether he what the financial need is to do that. Clearly, he feels it's okay, he can do without it. Perhaps it's something to make it's a gesture of goodwill to his staff. But that's going to be really interesting, and want to follow up with that. But I don't know if any other of the big business owners might be doing the same thing. Clearly now they might, if they don't want to feel left out. And then just the last bit, and I don't want to run over, but yesterday I just want to highlight a blog I wrote basically calling on planners to think about giving some pro bono advice. I know that things are, can be a little bit tough right now for everyone, but there's some people obviously in great desperate need, and thinking of the benefits that we get from people get from financial planning week every week. It seemed like a good idea. And I just want to do a quick shout out to Capital Asset Management, James Greeny from Capital Asset Management, who's been dedicating 1 day a week to offer 15-minute Zoom calls to any NHS worker that feels they need some financial reassurance, guidance, and perspective and comfort, is his words. But sounds like a great initiative, and I'd love to hear from any of you who are doing the same or have got something similar planned. And that's the end of the bulletin for today.
Thank you, Will. And well done, James Greeley, there for that. Will, can I just ask really quickly, in terms of the Chancellor's announcement yesterday, one of the things that came through was, and I know the press pack sort of picked up on it a couple of times, was that it looks like there may be an appetite for equalising self-employed and employed national insurance contributions. Have you noticed any more follow-up anywhere on that?
Yes, only to say, I mean, that the experts this morning, I had a quick listen to the Today programme to make sure I'd gemmed up, and that is very much people agree that is the suggestion, that's the direction of travel. Remember Philip Hammond, remember Phil, Spreadsheet Phil, the previous chancellor, one of the previous chancellors, had something basically the similar policy that they had to scrap, and he U-turned on and had to scrap because I think it broke a commitment in the previous manifesto. But this is something they've wanted to do for a while. They're spending so much money. It seems like they want to balance the books and bring this up again. Seems like an odd time to bring it up, especially when there's so many little problems and loopholes in this package for the self-employed. Nevertheless, that did definitely seem to be what he said. It seems people agree that's what they want to do. So yeah, that's going to be a big topic of debate, perhaps after the immediate crisis is over.
Thank you, Will. And thanks again for the new Model Advisor team for supporting this project. It's great to have you guys on board every morning. So look forward to seeing you and the team next week.
Pleasure.
And over to Phil.
Thank you, guys. Right, Chris Budd, now time for your regular. Chris is going to be doing this every day, his regular thought for the day. So Chris, take it away.
Phil, slightly disappointed that nobody stepped up to my terrible shirt challenge. I got loads of these guys, I can keep it going. Right, 2 minutes. So there's two reasons that we do things. There are two motivations why we do things, intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. This comes from Professor Tim Kasser of Knox University in America. An intrinsic motivation is something that you do for yourself that aligns with your purpose, that only you really care about, that doesn't need other people's applause, etc. And an extrinsic motivation is one that you do for other people. That includes materialism, it includes applause, thanks, and so forth. So if you have an extrinsic motivation, that doesn't tend to make much difference to your well-being. If you have an intrinsic motivation, that does have all the effect on your well-being. So I did a little poll yesterday of Next Gen planners, and really interesting to see. I gave you 4 options. Are you more busy, much more busy than you were, a little bit more busy, not really, slightly quieter, or much quieter? And of those 4 different areas, they were almost equal in how people's work had changed since the coronavirus started. Now that means at least half of you have got less to do than you used to. So if that's the case, why don't you go back through every single client, look at the financial plan that you've got for your client, and ask yourself, what is the objective? What is the point of this financial plan? What is it trying to achieve? And ask whether it's trying to achieve a motivation for the client that is intrinsic or extrinsic. If it's trying to achieve, I want to buy something, what will that give the client? What is the motivation? What is the purpose for it? If it's an intrinsic motivation, it means that they will be happier. If it's an extrinsic motivation, it won't make any difference to their happiness. So my suggestion today is go back through all your financial plans and make sure that they are all aligned to an intrinsic motivation.
Thank you, Chris. Now don't go anywhere because you're up next as well. So for those people who don't know Chris is formerly Ovation Finance, and is now runs the Eternal Business, and is the founder of the Initiative for Financial Wellbeing. And Chris is going to be our guest today, and we'll have a guest on every day, I think. Is it, Adam, next week?
That's right, Phil. Every day bar Wednesday when we've got our phone in on Wednesday. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, every week we have a long form interview guest. Yeah.
Fantastic. So today, Chris, you're in the hot seat. And as I think everybody probably on this call knows, your focus is financial well-being. So how do you think the current situation, the current coronavirus situation, is affecting people's financial well-being? And the second part of that one, what's your view of the support measures introduced by government?
So my wife is a cancer nurse, and by the way, big thanks to the world or the country for coming out last night. I hope everybody did that last night. I thought it was really quite an emotional moment, actually. When everybody came out and clapped for the NHS, I thought it was extraordinary. I think so she also works at a cancer centre, the Penny Bron Cancer Centre, where they give supportive treatment for people who are going through a cancer diagnosis. And one of the things that she tells me, and I think this is absolutely fascinating, is that people who've been diagnosed with not just cancer, a life-ending illness, after obviously a period of readjustment and grief, they report an increase in their well-being. And I think that's fascinating. And I thought a lot about why that is the case. And I think it's because you strip away the crap from life. You know, when you've got something like that to focus on, you stop worrying so much about all the things that you've been chasing, and you focus on the things that really make you happy, which is mainly the quality of your social relationships. So if that's going to be one thing that we're all doing as we're sitting at home, that might not be a bad output, actually. If we all go, do you know what? Why was I going to do that job with that crappy boss who I didn't like and making me feel unhappy? Why was I doing all of that? Actually, do I need all the money that I thought I needed? I reckon there could be a surge in financial planning at the end of this, actually. If people emerge from their homes and say, I think I'd like to understand my money a bit better and how much I need, how much is enough, you know. So I think it could actually have quite a positive impact if we play it right, if the financial planning community get out there and spread the message of what really good financial planning can actually do. So that's the first part. The second part, do you know what? I wouldn't like to be Boris right now. Who would have expected his prime ministership to include this? So I can't find myself to be critical of what they're doing. Even though they could do lots better, of course they could. But crikey, this is an unprecedented situation. So yeah, I think they're doing all right, to be fair.
Cool. And if government are trying to help different sectors of society, which of those sectors are you most concerned about?
I'm sorry, say that again, Phil?
Sorry, if government is trying to help different sectors of society, self-employed yesterday, for example.
Financially.
Financially, yes. Which sectors are you most concerned about?
Okay, so I'm going to be a bit controversial possibly here. I struggled a little bit with seeing people on the news yesterday saying that they were in financial hardship after a week. I know people have got difficulties, etc., but these weren't people who were vulnerable, they were workers. And maybe they should be putting a little bit more aside. Look, day one of financial planning school is emergency funds, right? The Barclays did a report quite a few years ago. It was one of the very first times that the phrase financial well-being was mentioned. And and it looked at the well-being of people in work. And one of the things that they found was that if you give somebody a bonus of £5,000 and you give them an emergency fund, so you stick some money away for them for £5,000, they're sticking the money away will increase their well-being by more. Having an emergency fund is absolutely key. So yeah, we've got to look after people right now, but let's learn a lesson from this. Let's take a positive from this, which is everybody should have some 3 months, 6 months of expenses stuck away somewhere that they never look at. And that should almost be compulsory. I mean, if I was a government, I'd make life assurance for people with young kids compulsory, wills for people with kids compulsory, and you have to put some money away until you get an emergency fund compulsory. That maybe is something that we've learned out of this.
Sounds very sensible, Chris. What one thing, apart from those, would you suggest planners do this week to help their clients' well-being?
Speak to them. So that was the tip from yesterday, to actually not email them, but pick the phone up and speak to them. But also just say, we're here. You know, when this all crap blows over, let's sit down and look at your financial plan and just see where it's going. The problem with well-being, when there's a massive problem with well-being when we don't know what the future holds. You can't look towards the next 6, 9, 12 months because you know what it's going to look like. The world has changed, you know, in a matter of weeks. I have a friend whose business went from 2 million turnover to 0 in a week. You know, he's going to need some support, and the support he's going to need, I mean, emotional support. And that's what financial planners can be doing. They can be getting over to those people and say, well, this crap is blown over a little bit. Let's just get through it. But then let's sit down and just review that financial plan and let's look at where we're going. If there's one good thing that might change from this, it's people engaging with their money. One of the 5 parts of well-being, financial well-being, is having control over your daily finances. But as is being evidenced by the number of people that don't have emergency funds, people don't tend to actually do that. I did a talk, a workplace well-being talk to 60 people. And I asked them who here is invested in the stock market. And 2 people put their hands up. I then said who here is part of the company pension scheme, and everybody put their hand up. And obviously, as you guys all know, all of them are invested in the stock market. So I said to them, you have to engage with your money. So a lot of clients are disengaged because that's why they're with financial planners, right? They give the money to you so they don't have to think about it. So I'm not suggesting we have to go back and talk to them about money, but they have to engage with their money to work out what it means for them. So that will be the one thing I would suggest, is speak to every single client over the coming weeks and book something in, or at least promise to book something in for the later in the year to sit down and go through what is your money for and what's it doing for you.
Fantastic. Now, we run a little bit tight on time, Chris, but last question, and we're going to ask everybody this question, every guest. What thing are you looking forward to most once these restrictions are lifted?
Well, ever since I sold the majority of Ovation to an employee ownership trust, I've been self-isolating anyway, because I spend most of my days in this cabin. So actually, it's the cricket season. I'm going to be really dull. I love my cricket, and it's heartbreaking to think. I just think it's so funny when you see on the news, and you want it at the end of the news, and now sport, and you want it to go to somebody who just goes,
yeah, there's nothing there, is there?
There's nothing there. I want the cricket back.
Fantastic. Well, we all look forward to the start of the cricket season, and that's a great segue into Steve. Where's Steve? He's still on his bike. So every Friday, Steve's going to be joining us for his fitness focus section. So over to you, Steve. What are you going to be talking about today?
Morning. All right. So we're going to try some tech, because one of my, despite the fact that my focus is a fitness focus, one of my personal objectives is to try and improve some of my cool tech use. So I'm going to try and share some things with you through my iPad, while still letting you see my handsome face on the main screen. The fitness focus really, I could literally just show you how to do a bench press or how to do a bicep curl. If you want to know that, there's plenty of videos on Google to teach you. What I wanted to chat to you a bit about today is that performance, well-being and health is a manifestation of having the right approach to nutrition, training, rest and recovery. This is crucially important at the moment when there's a virus out here that's going to try and attack our health and our well-being. Let's forget about performance for the moment. But from personal experiences, as most of you who know me know, I love my training. I love my nutrition in that I like feeding my fat face. And I'm not a massive fan of rest and recovery, because that's time where I could be doing more training. And I can promise you, even as someone who's trying to achieve sporting outcomes, it doesn't work. Much to my irritation, having eventually mastered nutrition and rest and recovery, or certainly better than I've ever done before, the opportunity to prove it in the Manchester Marathon a week on Sunday has gone. So you'll just have to take my word for it. So the principle for all of our fitness sessions from now on will be to look at the 3 tenets: the training element, the nutritional element, and the rest and recovery element. And each week I'm going to set you a challenge across each of the 3 areas. Oh, hang on, a minute. Too much tech. There we go. Okay, anybody suffering with this at the moment? At night, I can't fall asleep. In the morning, I can't get up. Yeah, pretty common at the best of times. Adam touched on this yesterday, the importance of routine. So, challenge number 1, wake up and be awesome. I want you to set yourself a target as to when you're going to get up every morning. And I want you to get up at that time every morning, work day or weekend, for the next week. There is a ton of evidence, and I can supply it to you if you really want me to, that supports the importance of having a regular get-up time in the morning as being an essential part of your mental well-being. And I know from personal experiences, it's a massive part of feeling physically strong and physically active. So it's not a complicated thing. I don't mind what time of the day it is. I would suggest 11 o'clock is frankly taking the piss. So somewhere a bit earlier than 11 in the morning, please. But other than that, it's totally up to you. Just get up. I don't care if you just sit in your pajamas and don't do anything. Let's get up for that week. It will start to create or reinforce a natural routine. You'll start to fall asleep at the right time and you will sleep better. So that's challenge number 1. Okay, so number 2, we're going to have a quick look at nutrition. Is this the majority of most people's foodstuffs? Yeah? Okay, so if you are the Brownlee brothers and you train for about 50 hours a week, by all means feast your face on empty carbs. So pasta, bread, rice, potatoes. If you're a little bit less active than that, I promise you, your body doesn't need it. And as we're in a situation now where we're likely to be undertaking less physical activity than normal because we've got a restriction on our movements, we're not going to the office every day. I appreciate there's the odd person's walking up and down their stairs more, and good work with that. But as a general principle, we're going to burn less energy at the moment than we usually do. So in order that we can come out of this experience as fit and healthy as we possibly can, it would make sense to try to reduce a little bit of the inputs. So my food challenge for you this week is I want you to substitute half of your bread, rice, potatoes, and pasta with some of these guys. Now, I don't know what most of these things are because I really, really don't like them. I much prefer the things that were on the previous slide. But this is going to be your challenge. I want you to swap half of those over. I want us to be eating more fruit and vegetables, less bread, rice, and potatoes, unless you are still training at a high level, in which case, obviously, follow your own nutrition program. Okay, we've not got masses of time, so we'll try and rattle through. Part 3 of this, obviously, is the exercise and fitness part. It is a demonstrable fact, and there's research to support it, that taking a little bit of exercise, moderate exercise, improves the ability to fight infection, okay? It's not drinking hocus pocus drinks, but taking some moderate exercise increases our ability to fight off this infection and increases our body's health. So I'm going to encourage you, obviously, all to take a little bit of exercise. If you can read this graph, and we're all clever people, so I'm sure you can, you will see there is a massive big uptick in the J at the other end. This is for those of you that are maybe approach exercise a little bit more than I did. We need to put at this stage a limit on the amount of exercise that we're undertaking and the intensity of that exercise. Otherwise, we are negatively impacting our body's ability to fight off infection. So the studies suggest no more than 60 minutes a day and no more than 60% of your maximum effort. If you don't know what that means, it probably isn't an issue for you. If you do, you should know. And if anybody wants any clarification, please drop me a tweet. Okay, a few things where we can get this exercise. The most popular thing, it's been unbelievably successful. PE with Joe starts in 1 minute. On YouTube, free to everybody. Do it with the family. Awesome. If you're more at the end of the day guy, this is my buddy Josh, who runs the Cystic Fibrosis CF Warriors charity. He's doing an Instagram work along at 7 p.m. I've started using a thing called Peloton. It's free for the next 90 days, and it will give you any kind of workout that you want to work along with. It's absolutely awesome. If you want something a bit more specific, my buddy has a program called Fit in 6 weeks, which is probably the duration of your lockdown. 10 minutes, 3 times a week, and it's a really intelligently designed workout program. It builds all the way through. It doesn't take an awful lot of time to do, and you will end up in a completely different shape by the end of it. Okay, so here are your 3 challenges. Up at the same time every day. Swap half your empty carbs for more vegetables and exercise each day. If you happen to be a vegetarian or a vegan, and the note things flashing at me, which might be people shouting at me saying I already eat tons of veg. The biggest challenge for you guys normally is you don't eat enough protein. So your challenge for the week is to eat some more protein. So nutrition, rest and recovery and exercise creates fitness. Fitness creates wealth. Talk to you more next week.
Steve, that was fantastic. There's loads of learnings there, and plenty that I'm going to be doing over the weekend, including stopping eating pasta and bread. So we're going to wrap up because we're just over time. So next week we have interviews from Keith Richards and Roy Percival, new feature from Catherine Morgan about financial coaching. Steve's going to be back next Friday for more of that stuff. And on Wednesday, we've got Adam Carolan and Ro with the first of their weekly phone-ins. Adam, do you want to finish off?
Yeah, we've also got Steve with a long-form interview on Monday as well, and a number of other new features starting. So we want to hear from everybody in our audience in terms of what features you'd like to see, but things that we are going to be launching, a gardening feature, an arts and crafts feature. We'll be doing some regular meditations and probably a gaming feature as well. But we want to hear from you. So if you do have any ideas, let us know. admin@nextgenplanners.co.uk, and we'd love to hear from you, and look forward to seeing everybody at 8:30 on Monday morning.